Hello and welcome to Mountain Patriot Homestead. I'm back in the kitchen. I've put down my paintbrush for now. I've got my apron on. You'll hear some background noise going on. That's my mister out doing some yard work. So I'll try to talk over that. I apologize if it's distracting to some of y'all, but we'll do the best that we can. Now today, instead of making pies, because we've been kind of stuck on pies lately, which is okay because I like pies, but today we're going to do something just a little bit different. Not so much that we're going to be all crazy or anything, but we're just going to switch over and do a cake today. And today's cake is called an old-fashioned whipped cream cake, and that is the only fat that this is going to have in it. It's not going to have butter in it. It's not going to have oil in it. The whipped cream is going to take the place of those. Then we'll add in some eggs for a little more liquid, and that will make up the fat content of our cake. I've got the oven preheated to 350 degrees. I've got a bundt cake or tube cake pan, whatever you'd rather call it. I've already got it sprayed and floured, so it's ready to go. Let's get cooking. Now this again is a very easy recipe. I try to not get too complicated when I get in the kitchen, especially on a Friday afternoon, because after working all week, who wants to spend hours in the kitchen trying to get a dessert together? So what I want to show you is just how easy this comes together. Now the first ingredient in this cake is 2 1/3 cups of cake flour. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't keep cake flour around the house. Well, though I do apparently throw it all over the counter. But I don't keep cake flour in the house because I don't make cakes that often. I know y'all probably don't believe that, since all you ever see me making is desserts, it seems like, but I really don't make a lot of cakes, especially since the kids are out of the house. But what you can substitute for cake flour is you can use all-purpose flour. I know I've got a sifter right there and I'm not using it, but I'm going to show you another way of doing this just in case. See, I don't know, can you see all of this? How I just, if I was smart, which I've never been accused of, I'd move that closer and then I wouldn't be throwing it all over the counter, but then what fun would that be? But I just have all-purpose flour, and I've got a sifter, but a lot of people don't use sifters because, some people just don't bake that much anymore, and that's okay, because we've got a way of getting around that, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. So there's 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now if you've got cake flour, use cake flour for this recipe. If you don't, you can do what I'm going to show you here. And so this is the 2 1/3 cups, which you would normally use cake flour. But since I don't have cake flour, here's what I'm going to do differently. I put the 2 1/3 cups in there, but then I'm going to take 2 tablespoons back out of this flour. 2 tablespoons out of here, just like that. Then I'm going to add something else in here, and this is cornstarch. Cornstarch is real fine, and it is going to lighten up this flour just a wee bit, which that's why you use cake flour if you've got it, is because cake flour is a lighter flour. Making music as we go. And so what I do is, for those 2 tablespoons of regular flour that I took out, I am adding in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So I put in 2 1/3 cups of flour, took out 2 tablespoons, and added in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to substitute. because, like I said, I don't have cake flour. And then instead of using my sifter, which I could have done, if you've got a whisk around the house, just use that and kind of do that. Make sure you get your lumps and things out of your flour and just help lighten it up some, because that will make a lighter crumb for your cake. It'll make it not be as dense. Okay, see, that just kind of lightens that up there. See, it made it pretty. All right, so there we've got the flour in. I know that sounded like it took a long time. It really wouldn't if you were just making it and not talking, but the next thing I'm going to add is 2 teaspoons. Got stuff everywhere here. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, use whatever brand baking powder that you prefer. I mean, the one I've got here is just what I get most of the time, because do any of you cook with certain ingredients because that's what your mama cooked with? Well, that's a lot of what I still do. I use certain ingredients just because that's what Mommy used. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of table salt. And I've cut back just a hair on that table salt because I don't know that I need a whole teaspoon, but it was close. So I'm just going to kind of mix all that in there together. And now I've got that ready to go. Let me get some of this other stuff out of the way so we have some elbow room, and we'll get on to our next portion of this cake. Here I have 1½ cups of heavy whipping cream that I'm going to just put in this bowl. And if you feel real energetic, you can use that same whisk and whip you up some whipped cream, but I'm going to use my mixer here, little hand mixer. You can use stand mixer, whatever you want to use, to beat this up until it forms stiff peaks. And that usually takes around 3 minutes, but it also depends on how cold your cream is and how cold your bowl is. So we're just going to get started and go until we get those stiff peaks. And there we are. We have our stiff peaks. It is, as you can see there, it it holds its peaks when I bring it up. So that is what we're wanting. Now I know somebody is going to have a question about, can you use Cool Whip in place, and I'm sorry I mentioned brand names, but that's the only one I can think of right now, in place of the heavy whipped cream. I personally don't know. If somebody else out there knows, please put down in the comments. I have not used it in one of these cakes, so I personally do not know, and I don't want to deceive you into thinking, oh yeah, throw it in there, because I don't know. So we've got the whipped cream ready. Now we're going to move to the next ingredient. So I have 4 eggs, and these are room temperature eggs. My girls provide them every day. So these are 4 fresh eggs, room temperature, and a cup and a half of sugar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to beat this until it's light and fluffy, and that is going to take just a couple of minutes. Again, none of this takes a long time. It takes longer for me to explain it than it does to actually do it. So let's get that done. Okay, and I have 2 more additions to put in this. I'm going to put some extract in it, and I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And that looks like a healthy 2 teaspoons. I like vanilla extract, in case you hadn't figured that out. And then I'm going to put about a half teaspoon of almond extract. All right, there we go. I'm going to move this out of the way, and then we're going to assemble this. Now I've got the 3 bowls of ingredients back together, and let me just plug my mixer back up one more time. This would be easy enough to do by hand, and I will do some of this by hand, but just for the flour portion, let's use the mixer. Now, the recipe says you can just dump all of that in there and mix all this flour into this egg and sugar, but to me it kind of defeats the purpose that you've made everything light and airy and then you just dump it in there. So I like to just beat it in, put part of the flour in, beat it in a little bit, and then add the rest of the flour, just to try to keep everything lighter. Okay, that was that. And then let's just add this last bit. And if you've got a bowl guard for when you're mixing things, it probably helps so it doesn't look like we've got a dust storm going on in here, but I do not, so what the heck, here we go. Alright, now doesn't isn't that a pretty color? And it just looks so creamy. But we're not done, because we still have the whipped cream to go in it to really make it creamy. So that is going to be our last thing. And we're going to be real careful about folding that in there, because we don't want to We don't want to ruin this whole creaminess. We don't want the whipped cream to fall, for one thing. We just want to get it all mixed in nicely. Just incorporate that in there. Keep it light and fluffy. Again, it takes me longer to explain it than it does to actually do this, because this is not a difficult recipe at all. You know, think about it. When our mothers and grandmothers and all of our past kinfolk got in the kitchen, you know, we think we don't have time today to do things. Well, think about them. You know, we tend to forget we own things like washing machines and dishwashers and things that vacuum our floors for us, and you know, even just something as simple as a remote control to change TV channel. But we forget that my grandma, for example, she made her own lye soap. She had a wash day that she would set up a iron pot. All right, did I say set up? It stayed set up out in the yard, and she'd build a fire under it, and that's where she washed clothes. And so, you know, when we think we don't have time for things, time was precious, because they worked pretty much from breakfast to supper, and sometimes before and sometimes after. So, you know, I'm just happy that I've got all the conveniences, even though, you know, there's sometimes I'll fuss and go on about technology. I have to say, it's a lot less work than they had to put in, though I'm not sure that we're better off, because I think we've lost a lot of knowledge. But thankfully, just dishes like this we can use and go back and hopefully recreate and just come closer with our past. I don't know how y'all feel about that, whether you relate any of that to when you cook, if that seems like, I don't know, any type of sentimental value to it. But I do. I mean, certain smells remind me of Mama's kitchen. I swear last week there was a day that actually I was outside painting, and I know the paint didn't smell that way, but I kept smelling what smelled identical to Mama's kitchen. See, I cannot do anything without making a mess. But it smelled identical to Mama's kitchen when she was cooking pinto beans, cornbread, and fried up taters. And I kept smelling that all day. And it wasn't me cooking, because sorry for my arm in the middle of it, because we ended up having sandwiches that day, because I was painting, he was working, and I didn't have time to be cooking all that. But I tell you, I kept smelling that, and my mama was heavy on my mind that day, that's for sure. See, folks, don't cook like I do. I make a absolute mess. Does anybody else cook like that? I hope not. I hope at least I have that unique ability to make the biggest mess out of nothing. Wipe my fingers off. Okay, so what I'm going to do, instead of beating it down on the counter like I would if this was a normal cake mix, I'm just going to kind of spread this around and try to even it out a little bit, because I don't want to, again, take out the air that we've took so much care in incorporating into it. Okay, all right. Boy, that's a mess of stuff left on there. I don't want to waste that. Get my spoon over here that I had earlier. I know this may seem silly to y'all, but I don't like wasting stuff. I don't know what you do if you have to work for a living, or maybe you're retired, but you remember working for a living. And I always equate of how long did I have to work to make whatever something cost. So, you know, when I'm throwing, even if it's a tablespoon of cake batter away, y'all, this is killing me here. I gotta clean this up here. But even if it's a spoonful, and then make another mess. Even if it's a spoonful of cake batter, you know, those few pennies, I had to work something to make that. All right, enough visiting. I'm going to get this in the oven, and I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees, 50 to 55 minutes. And we'll check it and see if it's done, and then we'll come back, okay? In case you've never done this before, this is what, if a cake is done and you stick a toothpick into it, when it pulls back out, there will not be any moist batter still on it. So this cake is ready. I'm going to let it cool off in the pan for just a few minutes. Then I will remove it from the pan and let it finish cooling down before we try to eat it. All right, we are back again. And I say again because this is actually take 2. Went through the whole testing and all this kind of stuff and realized I was not recording. So, yes, there are bites out of my cake. And
this is piece 2.
My mister over here already has his second piece. So apparently it's not bad. Here, you got to hear right there. It must not be too bad, or he wouldn't be on the second piece. But let me try to show you. Now I do have some, I did sprinkle a little bit. Here's the cake back here, and his glass of milk. I did sprinkle a little bit of powdered sugar on top. You don't have to. You could use it and make strawberry shortcake out of it if you want to. But this is, can you see that? Can you just see how spongy and just, I mean, it is so, how would you describe it?
Edible.
Edible. Well, it is edible. It must be edible. He's on piece number 2. So, but anyway, I apologize that we're screwed up the first one, but I don't think you mind much, do you? Yeah. And he is not a big dessert person. I'll just say that right off the bat. He does not like pies. He is not like most cookies. He's a sugar cookie fan and an Oreo cookie fan. But
that's all there is.
That's the only kind of cookies that exist for him. But when it comes to cakes, he's not a big cake eater either. Really.
Lemon German chocolate? No. The
red velvet.
Red velvet, that's
yes.
it.
Yeah, I was fixing to say German chocolate. You don't eat coconut. So, but this cake here he really likes because it doesn't have icing. He's not an icing person. So this, you can taste the almond extract in it. There's a very little almond, but you can taste the vanilla because I've kind of heavy hand when it comes to vanilla. But this is good. But it is really good with the milk. But
it's better with the milk.
It's better with the milk. But if you get a chance, give this a try. I'm going to go finish eating what's left of my piece and hide the rest of this cake so it don't disappear by morning. But I hope y'all have a wonderful evening. I hope you get a chance to try this cake. If you do, let me know down in the comments below what you think about it. And if you are looking for the recipe, the ingredients are down in the description below. So, hope you come back again, and we love y'all. Mountain Patriot Homestead, signing out.